Hello everyone and welcome to the Age Group Triathlon Podcast. My name is Simon Olney, I'm a professional triathlon coach, and in this week's episode I'm going to be looking at the 4 stages of triathlon performance. So this is designed to help you see what the next steps are towards you achieving that next level of performance, because for many of us, especially someone just starting out in the sport, they can see where they are and they can see professional athletes or people who are winning local races or the age group at the local races, and they're going, how do I get there? How do I achieve that next level of performance? And I, along with lots of other people, will talk about, the science and best practice with training, but this is all a sort of quite a confusing, sort of scattered picture. So I've created 4 stages, still a little bit of a draft, of a triathlete's development to help them see what it is that's stopping them from achieving their next level in performance. Now, this is not an exhaustive list. This is not, tailored for you as an individual. That probably goes without saying. It is simply based on my experience of coaching thousands of different triathletes and seeing what it is that's holding them back in each area of their training. So it's going to be quite generic, it's going to be quite far-reaching, and it could be that, you are ticking the boxes of a certain so all the attributes of a certain level of triathlete, and you're still not seeing the results that you want to, and that's obviously where individualization, that's where coaching comes in. This is just a roadmap, but it is to help you understand if you're in one place and you want to get to another place, what the next steps are to help you achieve that. So I'm going to start out with what I'm calling at the moment a rookie triathlete, so somebody who's just getting started in the sport. And I'm going to talk through sort of the attributes that I generally see, and I saw in myself, obviously, when I first got started in triathlon. So the first one is that they train based on mood and feeling. So they might wake up and go, oh, it's a lovely day for a bike ride today, I'm going to go out on my bike. Or they may go, I think I feel like a swim today, and I'm probably going to do sprints because I'm feeling pretty good. So they get it and they're going to do a pool sprint. Or it's just, they're feeling a bit sort of down in the dumps today. Happens to us all. So, what's really going to cheer them up is doing a high intensity bike ride hard to get them out of this slump. And, this is the kind of mindset that will get you around your first race. Make no mistake. The other attribute that I tend to see is a lot of these rookie triathletes, they see the swim as a way to get to the bike. So they think to themselves, well, really, I'm a cyclist or a runner or, a bike runner, as sort of we might call them. That is where my strengths are. And really, my race starts when I get to the bike. And then I'm going to make up time. You better believe that when I get on that bike, I'm going to start making up all the positions that I lost in the swim. They also tend to be largely focused on Strava, getting Strava kudos, Strava PRs, and sort of seeing how many people they can overtake in their training. So it could be that they're riding on Zwift, or Training Peaks Virtual, Ruby, whatever platform it is that you use, and they'll just be out on a general training ride, and they'll be focused on how many people they're overtaking in that training session, because it feels good to overtake people. They feel some validation. I'm faster than him, I'm faster than her, I'm faster than him, I'm faster than her. Look at how good I am. And it builds that self-esteem, and that's where quite a bit of their focus is. And if they're not overtaking people, if they feel slow, then that really has sort of an impact on their enjoyment of a session, their mindset, and their sense of sort of ego and self-worth, really. And the final one I've gone for here is that they get their training advice from social media. Alternatively, it could be that they get their training advice sort of from magazines, maybe. But generally speaking, the training advice they get, it's quite sort of scattershot. A lot of it, especially that from social media, is a really questionable quality. It could be that you have an influencer who's just started in the sport, doesn't know the first thing about swimming, cycling, and running really, but they've got a lot of money, they've bought a lot of kit, they're recording something from their training week in the Alps that they've booked, and they look the part and they're sharing their knowledge because they want to get followers, because they want to be able to make money from affiliate links further down the line, essentially. And they read all this advice, and they'll watch a reel, a TikTok video, they'll find something on YouTube, or they'll find something that someone shared in a Facebook group. Oh, you need to be doing this session every week to improve. You need to be doing more of this, include this. I've started including this in my training and I've got faster. And it's an absolute wall of noise. Looking at my workout library on Training Peaks, which is where I have all of my sessions that I will drag and drop onto athletes' calendars and then sort of edit once they're on the calendar as needs be, I've got over 300 sessions in there before we even start looking at strength and conditioning. Okay, there is so much information out there that for somebody to try to put this all together themselves to find their own recipe of what works, it's a fruitless endeavour. It's going to result in frustration. Now, over a longer training plan, or years of training, we are going to be hitting, a lot of those workouts. But we can't hit all of these workouts every week, every month, and we shouldn't be trying to either. And these people, they're trying to push their knowledge on us. And for so many athletes, it's just completely and totally overwhelming. And people get really lost in the noise. They drown in all the information out there. And their training, again, when you mix this in with the idea of sort of training to mood and feeling, this is a real recipe for disaster, because their training is a complete mess. It's just this amalgamation of this intensity, these intervals, doing these repeats, doing this, different times of the year, should do this, that's the waste of time. It's a real sort of witch's cauldron of training. And this is what keeps a rookie triathlete, really. Next up, I'm going to look at a competitive triathlete. The traits that I associate with a triathlete who is more competitive. Now, this is both them, actually being more competitive, finishing further up the order, but this is also a competitive mindset. The traits that I've listed just now, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of them. Let's be honest. People are out there, they're completing their first races, they're getting stuck in, they're enjoying the sport. And I never want to tell those people that they're doing it wrong as such, but they are stunting their development by having this approach to their triathlon. So, let's look at what I consider to be traits associated with a more competitive triathlete. Now, the first one I got is that they focus on their weaker disciplines. So, if using the example before, somebody who's new to open water swimming and they just see the swim as something they need to survive, to drag themselves through. If we are a more competitive triathlete, then we are going to understand and we are going to know that we need to stop looking at how fast our run was, and we need to start looking at how slow our bike was, or our swim, or vice versa, of course. Looking at their whole sort of performance rather than focusing on individual disciplines. And this is a real light bulb moment for every triathlete when they really stop looking at, I remember looking at my results at the London Triathlon and go, I'm in the top 4% of runners at the world's biggest triathlon. I think it was top 4%, maybe something around there. And really taking a huge amount of heart from that, whilst ignoring the fact that my swim and my bike were incredibly mediocre. But I clung on to that, yes, but there's that single discipline I'm really good at. What I should have been doing, and what I did, is dial back the time that I spent on my running and spend more time on my swimming, on my cycling. So when somebody zooms out from that, okay, I'm going to focus on what feels good or what I'm best at, and goes, look, if I want to get a faster finish time, I need to put more focus on my swimming, on my cycling, any of those basically. The next attribute of a competitive triathlete is that they include strength training. Now, don't get me wrong, You can get through, you can complete Ironmans, you can, do quite well without including strength training, but you will get injured at some point. And I would wager that a large part of that will come from the fact that you neglected strength training. Now, I know there are plenty of triathletes who sort of I follow on social media who I know, and they tell I don't do strength training, I do, and then they get injured, and then they do a bit of strength training, and then they start after a few months the injury goes away, and they start talking about oh yeah no I don't do strength training, it's a waste of time, and then they get injured again, and they find themselves stuck in this loop. And if you want to be a competitive triathlete, if you really want to get better, you need to include some strength training. Now, this does not have to be going to the gym 3 times a week for an hour. It can be a single session a week. It can be 45 minutes. It can just be body work, strength and conditioning, but including something in your training to help address the muscular imbalances that we get from swimming, cycling, running, the volumes that we want to be competitive. It's a non-negotiable for me. And if you want to know more about this, have a look through the podcast. I did a 3-part series on strength and conditioning. Go back, go listen to that. That is going to give you a great insight into sort of how to get started with the strength and conditioning. Sort of some of the benefits of it and the general objections that people have, and how I help people sort of get around those and include that within their training. And we all talk a lot about the benefits of strength and conditioning and the impact it has on our ability to reduce injury. But let's be honest, there is also performance gains that come from getting stronger, more explosive, better acceleration. We can focus on all of these areas in our strength and conditioning to help us take our performance to the next level rather than simply worrying about reducing injury. And the final attribute I have is that they follow a structured plan. Now, this could be that they are working with a coach. This could be that they have purchased a training plan that they're following. Whatever it is that they're doing, they are not training in a random fashion. They are training with a structured plan. Now, it could be that somebody's written a structured plan themselves. That's absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with being a self-coached athlete, but they've written themselves a plan. They have they have learned, they have read, they have listened to podcasts, and they have sat down and they've gone, okay, I am going to create something for myself that is sort of a structured approach to this training. I'm not training randomly. I'm going to have a schedule and I'm going to be thoughtful with it. We're going to have rest weeks. We're going to have harder weeks. We're going to do sort of these kinds of intervals are the ones that I want to focus on. There has been real thought behind the training that they're doing rather than waking up and thinking, I fancy a swim today. And the final sort of attribute checkpoint that I have is that they've finished in the top 50% of their age group at an event. Now, this may sound like a really high bar. I don't think it is if you keep turning up. Now, that's not to say it won't take you a couple of years to get to that level. But I believe that there are very few people who can't achieve that. If you are consistent, if you keep turning up, bearing in mind, you're comparing yourself to your peers. I'm not saying top 50% of an event, that's unrealistic. There are some people who just wouldn't be able to achieve that. But finishing the top 50% of your age group, yeah, I think you can do that. In fact, I know you can do that. It might take time. It might mean that you have to change your mindset a little bit. By following a structured plan, by including strength training, by focusing on your weaker disciplines. But if you sort of embody these habits, I believe that most people, they can achieve this. Next up, I'm going to move on to the advanced triathlete. So this is somebody who is taking their training to the next level again. They're already following a structured plan. They already include strength work. They focus on their weaker disciplines. But they're not content with just being in the top 50% of their age group. They want to get higher. They want to go faster. They want to take their triathlon training to the next level. Okay? And the first attribute I'm going to list here, again, you may see some that, by the way, you may see yourself in some of these attributes that I am listing with the advanced triathlete or the elite triathlete. And you may go, oh, yes, but I already achieved those. But if you don't have the other pieces of the other lower levels in place, then you're probably not going to be finding yourself at that level. Anyway, the first attribute I have for the advanced triathlete here is that they have a comprehensive knowledge of their bike. They know which width tyres they're able to run with the forks and the seat stays that they have. They are going to be able to tell you the right pressures that they're running in their tyres. They are going to be able to sort of list off all of the parts that they have. They're going to be able to fix basic mechanicals, roadside mechanicals themselves. They're going to be able to sort of take their bike apart broadly and sort of rebuild it to an extent. Now, it's not to say they need, they never take their bike in for a service, that they replace all of their bearings themselves, that they are essentially a part-time mechanic. That's not what I'm saying. But if somebody talks to them about crank lengths, if somebody talks to them about sort of the size of the disc rotors that they're running, or the sort of the stack at the front of their bike, that they're going to be able to engage in a conversation. They're going to be able to talk to you about gear ratios. They're going to be able to understand the best way to get their bike set up for them, and to be able to really sort of trust in their bike. They don't fear their bike. It's not something they jump on and pedal around and pray to God that it doesn't break. They have an in-depth knowledge of their bike, and they know how to optimize it. They know how to fix it. They understand the components. They've taken the time. Now, this may feel really intimidating to learn all of this, and it is my intention to put together some resources to really help people understand their bike. It's just quite sort of far down my list of priorities currently. I want you to be able to understand your bike so that you feel empowered, so that you feel confident when you go out with it on long rides. You have all the bits that you need to fix those basic mechanicals if they were to happen. You could split and repair a chain if needs be, to have this extra level of bike knowledge. And, this may seem, excessive. This may seem like quite a jump from being a competitive triathlete to, suddenly I expect you to know all about your bike. But if you don't, you're leaving yourself vulnerable, and you're also leaving performance on the table. If you don't understand how to get that bike as comfortable for you, if you don't understand how to get yourself nice and sort of aerodynamic, you are leaving performance on the table, and you're not an advanced triathlete unless you're really in tune with your bike. An advanced triathlete is also going to optimize their sleep, their nutrition, and their recovery. So let's break this down. An advanced triathlete, they are going to want to prioritise their sleep. They're going to want to make sure they're getting their 8 hours a night. They are not getting 6 hours a night so they can get up and get in an extra session. They are being smart, they are prioritising their sleep, and they are acknowledging that, look, if it's a case of between getting 2 sessions in a day on 6 hours sleep, or getting 8 hours sleep a night, that at least most nights they are going to prioritise that sleep over that extra session, because they're interested in their performance rather than sort of just the amount of training hours that they can fit in and running themselves into their ground. An advanced triathlete, they need to see all of their food through the lens of performance. Now, this isn't to say that you need to obsess over every single thing that you put in your body. But when you're deciding what it is that you're going to have for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, you need to be thinking to yourself, okay, so what sort of carbohydrate content is in this? How is that going to fuel my next session? How much protein is in this? How much protein have I had throughout the day? If you have an evening session coming up, how is this snack going to impact my performance? There are a huge amount of considerations to make with nutrition, and it really is sort of, it's a life's work to be able to get your diet to be as optimal as it can be. And you will have times where you go, well, this isn't going to have a fantastic effect on my performance, but I think I've earned this pizza. It doesn't matter. We're going out to celebrate my brother's birthday. I'm just going to have what it is that I want. It's not to say you have to obsess over every meal, but you need to think how the food choices that you're making in the day are going to affect your performance. And you'll be looking at the macronutrients, the fats, the carbohydrate, the protein. You are going to be considering the micronutrients. You're going to be looking at the vitamins and the minerals, and the minerals that you need to make sure that you're getting the vitamins like vitamin D that are harder to get. You need to keep this consideration. It's not to say that you need to start popping supplements left, right, and centre. That's not the case at all. However, you do need to have this in the forefront of your mind, and additionally, we do need to think about the calorific content of what it is that we're eating. If we are in a phase, sort of in the winter time, where we're going, you know what, let's aim for a little bit of a calorific deficit. Let's focus on our body composition a little bit. You need to think to yourself, okay, so, am I having unnecessary calories throughout the day? Do I need the extra snack? Whereas if you are getting close to a race, your lens shifts towards, am I getting enough calories? Am I eating enough to support my training? This needs to be at the forefront of your mind. And if you neglect this, then you're not going to be able to sort of achieve your potential. You're not going to be getting faster. You're going to be leaving performance on the table. Again, I don't want you to obsess about this. I don't want you weighing everything you eat. But when you're looking at a menu in a restaurant, or when you're looking in the fridge, deciding what is it you're going to have, you need to have half a mind towards how that's going to make you feel, how it's going to affect your recovery, how it's going to fuel your next workout. And then there's recovery. So this is ensuring that we're not focused simply on going as hard as we can all the time, simply focus on the sessions themselves. We want to make sure our body is adapting to the sessions. So this is in part sleep, making sure we're getting our 8 hours, sometimes some people might have naps in the middle of the day. Again, it's quite a luxury to be able to do that, but some people might do that. We have the nutrition, so making sure we're getting sort of enough protein, enough carbohydrate, that we're ready to go for the next session, that we're giving our body the raw materials it needs to adapt to the training stimulus. As well as sort of the structure of our workouts, making sure that if we have a really hard session, that we don't then go into having a really long session the next day, making sure we include recovery weeks in our training, doing everything we can to make sure that we are giving our body the time, energy and resources it needs to actually adapt to the training and make us faster, instead of just running ourselves down into the ground. The next attribute that I have for an advanced triathlete is that they've read textbooks on triathlon. So I don't want to say they've done their own research, because this could, that could be just sort of browsing YouTube, finding videos or information, social media posts that tell you what you want to agree with. I'm talking about, going out there and reading, relatively serious books about training, about the human body, learning about periodization and different approaches to training. Now, you don't have to listen to everything in all of these books. I mean, if you followed everything every book says, you'd find yourself in a confused mess. But you are taking the time to invest in your own knowledge to really understand the why behind the training. And you will find as you read different books that, there are bits that different authors, different coaches, different sports scientists disagree on. That's fine. You'd expect a level of disagreement. But the important part is we are taking the time to do this investigation, to learn as much as we can about our body, about the sport, about the concepts of training. There is so much that is really important for us to learn, that advanced triathletes, they take the time to learn this. They're not leaving themselves at the mercy of social media, at the mercy of, just sort of magazines, guest columns written by coaches, what they've read in the newspapers. They are actually going out there and they are reading really important books, maybe even some scientific papers if somebody, comes from sort of a scientific background. Really trying to understand about the human body rather than just taking people's word for it. This is something that I encourage my athletes to do. I don't want them simply to trust me with every single aspect of their training. If they can go away and they can read a textbook and they go, oh, hey Simon, I did a bit of reading on this, and it's making me think that maybe this is the way to go about things. then that's really valuable. We can have a conversation because it may be something that I have missed. Admittedly, I probably have an awful lot more time to spend learning than triathletes do, but that's not to say that I've read every single textbook that has ever been written. I'd never pretend to have achieved that. So if they can come to the conversation and go, well, I've read this, I understand this, is this the way to go about things? It may be that I turn around and go, oh yes, I've read that as well, but I don't believe that's the right approach for you because X, Y, Z. That could well end up being the case. Or it could be, well, simply, that is a really good point. I've not heard that before, I've not come across that. Let me read into it a little bit more and I'll get back to you. We can see if this is an approach that we want to use. I, as an athlete, as a coach, I'm never going to know everything. I'd never pretend to. So I want my athletes, who want to perform at a high level, to come to me and to say, you know what, Simon, I've read this. Do you think there's any mileage in it? Because that's how we grow. That is how we develop. That is how we sort of achieve our potential as athletes, is that we are doing all of this extra research and we are sort of changing our approach based on it. Now, the final sort of attribute that I have to allow somebody to to achieve this status of an advanced triathlete is that they finish in the top 20% of their age group. Now, I believe personally that if you have a comprehensive knowledge of your bike, you optimize your sleep, your nutrition, and your recovery, you read textbooks, you include strength training, you follow a structured plan, you focus on your weaker disciplines, I truly believe you can finish in the top 20% of your age group. Now, is that a lot of work? Yeah, I'm not going to pretend it's not. But if you keep these attributes, if you stay focused, if you stay consistent, and you keep this going for months, maybe even years at a time, you can break into that top 20%. This is just good practice. If you follow these attributes, if you include these in your training, if you stay focused, if you stay consistent, you can finish in the top 20% of an event. It's going to take work. I'm not going to pretend it won't. But it can be done. And these attributes, these are little stepping stones to help you along the way to achieve these goals. Next up, I'm going to look at the elite triathlete. So this is a triathlete who is the very forefront of their age group, who's regularly getting podiums, who is, really achieving their potential as an athlete. Now, it could be that this is an age grouper who is just doing incredibly well for themselves. Or it could be this is somebody who's looking to turn professional. Now this podcast, obviously it focuses on age group athletes as opposed to those who are professionals. But still, everybody who sort of qualifies as a professional triathlete starts out as an age grouper, really, broadly speaking. There may be some exceptions there. But if you are looking to go along this pathway, this is where you want to be. You want to find yourself with these attributes if you want to be achieving your utmost potential physically as an athlete. Now, this was a slightly harder one to write for. Because you've already sort of established what it takes for somebody to get into that top 20%. But to then get into that top 1%, 2%, it is a different story. And a lot of it, unfortunately, simply comes down to volume of training, consistency of training. However, I didn't want to say, well, to be, this level of athlete, you need to be training for these hours a week, because that's not always the case. I wouldn't want to put somebody off of going on a performance journey saying, well, you need to be doing 15 hours a week to be an elite triathlete, because that's just not the case. I know there are people who do it on less. Some people are just sort of a bit genetically blessed. Others who they're just very sort of thoughtful, conscientious with their training. They've been training for so many years, they've just got themselves into a really strong position. But the first one I've gone for here is that they focus on efficiency rather than brute force. So a lot of triathletes, they talk all about their threshold power. They talk all about their best 100-meter time in the pool. They talk about their 5k time. They're looking at these performance sort of attributes. They're going, look how fast I can swim, cycle, and run. Look at the power that I can create. Whereas, especially over longer distances, your elite triathletes, they're going, well, what's the minimum effective dose that I need in my training to be able to achieve this level of performance? What is the minimum sort of power that I need to push on the bike to achieve my targets? So rather than saying at my next race I want to target 20 watts higher, your very top Ironman athletes especially are going, well, in my next race I want to ride 20 watts lower but go even faster. It's looking at through that lens of performance over simply power, speed, output. It's looking at the larger picture, looking at, well, what is it that we're looking to achieve? We're not looking to output the highest normalized power on course. We are looking to have the fastest bike split on course, followed by the fastest run split. It is about efficiency. It's not simply about banging your head against the wall, trying to raise your power, trying to improve your 5k time. If we are looking at this through the lens of sort of an Ironman athlete, which I think a lot of people will be looking at this through the lens of, it is about going, okay, so how is it that I can have a fantastic swim around an hour? How is it that I can put in the fastest bike split possible with the least amount of energy expended, and then be able to run a fantastic marathon at the end? You know, how is improving my 5k time going to set me up for a better marathon? It's probably not. You know, will having a higher FTP and riding a higher power set me up for a better sort of run? Maybe it will, maybe it won't. It's taking a step away from this more simplistic way of thinking and going, how can I race faster? Now, if you are looking at a shorter distance race, it could be a case of going, well, okay, if I want to be the absolute best that I can be over the Olympic distance, what is it that's going to make me run 10k faster? How is it that I can, if you are, if somebody is at the point where they're racing in draft legal events, how is it that I can be canny enough with the tactics? How is it that I can set myself up for the best run possible? If you are a strong biker and you're looking at a draft legal event, how is it that I can extend my bike advantage without dragging those faster runners with me? It's looking at it from this sort of more tactical perspective, looking at what is it that's actually going to win you races or get you onto podiums, rather than simply focus on, the amount of intervals that you're doing. Now, it could be that if you are, again, looking to get as fast as you can over the sprint, to go, you know what, I'm going to step away from doing constant threshold work and all of these races, and I'm going to do a block, I'm going to do a winter where I'm going to get myself up to doing 2-hour long runs, knowing that the aerobic fitness that I gain from that could be what takes me to the next level in the 5k. It is just taking that step back and seeing everything through a long lens, removing yourself sort of emotionally from your training and your racing, and taking a really hard look and going, I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to drop the Tuesday night chain gang from my training schedule, because for me it's much more important for me to focus on my swim to make sure that I come out in a good bike pack. These are the really important elements, and it also that comes through to aerodynamics as well. How is it that I can make sure that I'm optimal aerodynamically? I'm not saying just stick a pair of clip-on tri-bars onto your road bike and just buy whatever helmet you can get in the sale. Are you making sure that you are getting the right race suits that are going to be fitting you well? Are you making sure that you're getting the right wheels for the right kinds of events that you're taking on? It is looking at this from a perspective of efficiency rather than simply brute force. The next one I have is that they trust their perception of effort over data. So we all have data. We all like to see, oh, I set my best time there. I've done my longest ride of the year. I can see my heart rate did this, or my average power was this. My fitness is increasing at this rate. All of these elements here. And, this is really useful. This gives me great insights as a coach. But a really top level triathlete, they trust their perception of fatigue, of effort, over what it is that their power meter or their heart rate or training peaks or anything like that tells them. Because at the end of the day, this is probably what's more important. And now, this is a bit of a bugbear of mine, because you have a lot of elite athletes will tell amateur athletes that this is what they need to do. You need to trust your rate of perceived exertion over what it is that your watch is telling you. And you know what? I agree. I think that RPE is a very underrated metric. However, RPE is something that I use for real beginner athletes who we don't have a accurate threshold for. But I also use it for the very top end athletes that I work with. Those in the middle, which I would say those in the middle of the bell curve, so probably a good 90% of athletes, I want to set our workouts, well, our workouts are always set on a percentage of pace or power. But most athletes, RPE just isn't super reliable because we don't know our bodies well enough. If I'm to tell a new athlete to go out and to run easy, they're going to end up running too hard. And if I ask a sort of an athlete training for an Ironman how they're feeling, how the fatigue levels are, if it's their first Ironman, they're probably going to say, yeah, you know what, it's really hard, but it's bearable. Whereas if I'm talking to somebody who's been training for 10 years, and I say, how are you feeling? How are the fatigue levels? And they go, they're pretty high, if I'm honest. Like, I think I can hold this for like another couple of months, but not much more, because I know when I feel like this, that things are starting to go wrong. And this is experience, and you cannot replace experience. You need to learn your own body. I, as a coach or any other coach, can't tell you what sort of too much fatigue is, what not enough fatigue is. The only way you can know that is with experience and making mistakes yourselves. And so if you have an elite triathlete who's working with a coach or following a plan, and they're looking at the training that's coming up, and they're going, I can't, this is too much, this is too hard, I can't sustain this, then an elite level triathlete is going to know not only to recognise this and to go, I need to change something, they're also going to know what it is that they need to do. Well, this long ride on the weekend, I'll knock the duration back by an hour and I'll remove the intervals. Or I've got some hard VO2 work tomorrow. I'm going to skip that. I'm going to do an easy run instead because I know that I'm not going to be able to nail that session. It could be that again. Well, I've just not eaten so well the last few days. My sleep has been troubled, and I know that I'm not going to be able to achieve my objective in that session. An elite triathlete will recognise this and will change things and will understand how to change things. Whereas even sort of a quite advanced triathlete might go, oh, well, I've just got to drag myself through this session. I've got to get it done. An elite triathlete sort of knows the difference between when they're exhausted and when they need to take a break, as opposed to when they just need to push on through. The next attribute of elite triathletes is that they see triathlon as being a multi-year project, and they trust the process. It's very easy to be distracted by all sorts of, I might just start doing this, trying this, getting frustrated. Why is it that I'm not improving fast enough? I need to achieve this. I want to, they've got these big goals, big dreams, but they're only giving themselves 2 years to achieve these. And look, if you just want to finish an Ironman, yeah, you could probably do that in a year or two. If you want to go closer to that sort of 9-10 hours for an Ironman, then you really need to be looking it through the lens of like, this is going to take several years. It's not going to be sexy. it's not going to be fun at times. Those athletes who are sort of at that quite sort of elite level, they've got a high sort of boredom threshold when it comes to sort of their training. Get the amount of sessions they're going to go out and do is these 4 5 hour relatively sort of steady state rides for sort of weeks, months on end. They need that to be able to sort of to achieve the goals that they have, rather than jumping around from, oh, I'm gonna do these intervals, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna go here. I read about this new training method. Look, they're going to be keeping an eye out on the latest sort of developments in the world of training, and they're going to be trying new things as and when needs be. But they also accept that for them to achieve greatness in the sport, they can't be jumping around from methodology to methodology, session to session, always trying to find ways to mix things up endlessly. Now, you can mix things up in the way of, I'm going to change up the routes that I do. I'm going to do different races each year. You could change up the disciplines a little bit. I'd sort of do some duathlon over the winter. There's a local aquathlon. I'll have a go at that. But they're not constantly jumping around from idea to idea, trying to desperately crack the code of performance. This new Norwegian method, I'm going to give this a go. And that didn't work. I'm going to do polarized. I'm going to switch to a polarized method instead. Or no, pyramidal. I think I've read about that. That's the way to go. I read a YouTube video. You watched a YouTube video this top triathlete did on it. They are seeing true greatness in the sport, really going to and doing really well at World Championship events as being something that is going to take, well, in some cases, sort of a decade or more. That is what sets them apart. It's that long-term vision. It's that patience. It is that long game that they play. And the final attribute is that, well, they podium regularly at events at their age group, and they go to qualify for and hopefully go to World Championship events in their age group. This is the top level of triathlon performance. So there we have it. Again, if you have any thoughts on things you think that I've missed that are really important, or you think that some of them are a little bit too aspirational, do let me know. But I hope that has given you a really sort of thorough understanding of the sort of the stepping stones, different areas required to be able to achieve those goals. Now, of course, how you go about achieving these, it really is sort of dependent on you and your circumstance. If somebody wants to focus on their weaker disciplines, then yes, they're going to need to work probably with a swim coach. If somebody wants to follow a structured plan, then they're going to need to ideally work with a coach or buy a training plan, or spend a lot of time learning about the sport to become self-coached. If they want to optimize their nutrition, they're going to need to spend time learning about nutrition. They're going to need to sort of spend time working with trial and error. Within each of those, there is a lot of work to be able to tick those off. Having comprehensive knowledge of your bike, it could take you sort of a year or more to really understand the name of all the parts, how they work together, how to fix them when they go wrong. This is a really long-term project. I hope I've really pushed this home to you. This isn't something where somebody can go, oh, I'm going to go from being a rookie triathlete, where I am now, going into 2026, I'm going to do my first races, and by the end of the year, I'm going to be an elite triathlete. It isn't that simple. It is about having this long-term vision and this long-term aspiration. Now, I'm going to be using this framework from my free triathlon club, and the idea is that by joining, I can help people move from rookie to competitive to advanced and eventually elite triathlete if they have the appetite to, if they want to, if they're driven enough to. The idea being, I will take you through this journey as a part of this online triathlon club. I'm not going to segregate it. I'm not going to have, one area of the club for those who are rookies, another for competitive, another for advanced, another for elite. I'm not going to do that. I may end up in time having sort of a optional message board that people can join if they are competitive, to discuss that area of things, as opposed to one for those who are just starting out, so that they can sort of ask questions of those and get help from people who sort of have a similar outlook, approach to the sport as them. But the idea is that the club is going to be underpinned by these 4 stepping stones to help somebody move closer to sort of achieving those performance goals that they have. I want to help people learn, I want to help them get out of their own way and learn what it is that's holding them back from getting faster as a triathlete. I will be, of course, letting you all know when the club goes live in early January. I hope you'll look forward to that. I've currently got some bespoke athletes of mine in there at the moment that we're using just to kind of help me get an understanding of sort of how the interface feels. So that hopefully the launch is nice and smooth in January. But I will be releasing a special episode on January the 1st, which will be sharing with you how to get started and how I can help you achieve your goals in 2026. Thank you once again for your company. I look forward to seeing you all very soon.